Okay, what are you saying, people, and welcome back to my channel. Now today I've got another weekly Forex analysis for you guys. So on the screen are the pairs we'll be analyzing today, but make sure you stay to the end of the video because I will be going into depth analysis for each pair about what's happened during this week and potentially all the big moves happening for next week as well. So make sure you stay to the end of the video for all that. But guys, let's just get straight into it. First up, we've got Euro USD. Okay, so first up we've got Euro USD. So for this pair, we did see that move to the downside, which was expected this week. We were looking at this area as our target around the 1.17 mark. As you can see, we smashed into that quite early on, consolidated for a little bit, and a big push to the upside just on Friday there. As you can see, a massive bullish candle. So Euro USD is looking quite bullish here. We were looking for some retracement early on the week. However, we didn't really get much of that. As you can see, pretty much price action just consolidated there before breaking to the downside. Was looking for a bit of retracement further up and then for price to come down. However, that didn't happen and we were looking quite bearish early on. But as you can see now, we're actually looking quite bullish here with all that momentum there just before we closed on Friday. So for this week, I'm expecting more upside for Euro USD. We do have this key level here of support, which will now be, well, price support was resistance, will now be turned support again. As you can see, this move gave us a really nice push to the upside, and I do believe we could get another push to the upside again for Euro USD this week. If I go on the daily chart quickly, you can see we are on a little bit of a channel now for Euro USD. If I just connect the wicks there and I clone that trend line, bring it to the lower wicks there, you can see we are just trading in this channel, and I think we're just going to get another continuation back to the upside for next week into this area here, which was price support there, and now will be term resistance. So I'm expecting a push to the 1.18500 area next week for Euro USD. First, again, like usual, want to see that retracement first. Don't want to take it on the impulse. Want price to retrace for us, find support, and then come back in again. So we were looking for buying opportunities around this area here and take it back into that 1.18500. So for Euro USD, as you can see, nice support there, will be 10 support again. We'll be looking for this opportunity for price to retrace back down, test this area support, and then take it back into that resistance there around 1.18500. Next, we're going to take a look at USD JPY. Okay, so next up we've got USD JPY. So for this pair, we did see some nice upside momentum this week, which was expected. We are biased to the upside, looking for a push into that key level of resistance down the daily. As you can see, we smashed that target. However, we didn't get the retracement we were looking for. We wanted for price to come back to around this area here, retrace, retest that, form a nice higher low, and then take the longs. However, as you can see on Monday, this is pretty much all the retracement we got before price went and going to hit our target. So didn't see much retracement there, but we did see our target getting hit there, so we know we are in the right direction. And as you can see, price is looking very, very bearish right now. So I'm actually going to flip my bias this week, and I'm expecting more downside for USD JPY coming into next week. If you look in the daily here, you can see it does look like the price is starting to reverse. We've had this bullish trend here. It looks like price is running out of steam here. This looks like potentially our first lower high of the market on the daily, and we could be seeing a big move to the downside back down to these lows. So I'm expecting more downside for next week for USD JPY back into these lows down here, which was the lows of a couple of weeks ago. And as for opportunities, I want to see some retracement now for USD JPY. First area, we'll be looking at this area here to come back, retest, and come back down again. As you can see, nice resistance there, nice support there as well. So we'll be looking to see if we can get a nice entry from there, take that down, nice stops above there, back into that low over there. So that's the opportunity we'll be looking at. However, again, learning from our lessons here, price doesn't always have to retrace. Well, it does retrace, but doesn't have to retrace as much as you would like it to. As you can see, very little retrace and then the continuation. So we do have to take that in mind. Price might not retrace all the way back up to that level before it does come down. So we do have to take into account other levels in price, and we do have this level here which we were looking at last week. So if price does decide to, from Sunday evening, just kick off to the downside on Monday as well and then come back down, we can look at this area to look to get involved and short it back down again. So these are the two areas I will be looking to get involved in for USD JPY for next week. Again, stops just above that level, targets at these lows there. So that's kind of the two levels I'll be looking to get interested in, looking to get involved in, depending on what price wants to do. So do have to stay reactive. Don't just short just because price is at that level. What's it doing? Here's looking very, very bearish. So if that momentum does kick on, come back into this level, we'll look to short that back down again. Or if it finds support early on in the week, starts to push back up again, we'll look to get involved here, some shorts and take it back down. But nonetheless, the targets will still be at these prior lows, or maybe even lower if you want to take it lower than that. But like I said, USD more short, more downside for this pair this week, back down to these lows down there.
And next we've got USD CAD.
Okay, so now let's move on to USD CAD. So for this pair, we did see some nice upside this week. We were looking at trading within this range here for USD CAD this week. Nice support there, nice resistance here, and we're looking at trading, buying from there, selling from that resistance there. We didn't quite get to 1.26, which is this resistance, which was the area that I was looking to sell back down again. We kind of just missed that by a few wicks before price did turn quite bearish quite quickly, but we did see a nice buying opportunity here to take it back up again. So coming into next week, I'm bearish on USD CAD. I do think we'll see a nice downside movement for USD CAD. In fact, I'm expecting a lot more weakness in the dollar to be coming into the following weeks and maybe months as well. So again, a lot of these pairs I do expect to see a lot of downside. On the flip side, like Euro USD, Pound USD, I do expect to see a lot of movement to the upside in the next coming weeks and months. But USD CAD, looking at this price action here, is looking quite bearish. We're back below this support here now, term resistance, and I do expect to see a nice move to the downside here for USD CAD back into these lows here. So the price action right now is looking quite bearish here. With all these wicks here, it's looking good for some sales quite early on the week. So looking to get involved around there, stop just above that previous wick there, and looking to get involved in that support there. But do keep in mind that the market is quite bearish, and if USD does keep up that weakness, we could push on past these lows here, and you could look to target something like this nice area of resistance down there. So you could look to push the trade on a little bit more, and I probably, if I do get involved in this trade, I probably would do it as well, because I do think that US dollar weakness will kick in quite a lot next week. Especially for USD CAD, which it does look like it's just building up for a big move to the downside. Potential head and shoulders here as well, so left shoulder, head, right shoulder there as well, and looking for that big sell off to the downside and create some new lows past that. So USD CAD more downside for this one. It's looking good for entries quite early on. Again, stops just above that wick there, and then yeah, sells back into this support here, or even further. In the case that we actually do break past this area here and push into this resistance here, again looking for more sells. So if that does happen, again looking to get involved in some nice quick rejection, something like we saw here. If we get that again, that'll be great, and targets will still be at that support down there. So more downside for next week for USD CAD. We'll be looking to get involved quite early on if those wicks do keep up, and targets will be at that support there. But if we can push past, we'll be looking to target this support around the 1.23 700 mark.
Up next is Euro GBP.
Sorry to interrupt the video, guys, but if you are enjoying the content and you find it useful, make sure you go hit the subscribe button down below, and also make sure you drop a like as well. It really does help the channel out. But anyway, back to the video.
Okay, so now I'm going to move on to Euro GBP. So for this pair, we're seeing some retracement to the upside, which was expected. We did quite have a nice sell-off last week, so I was looking to see some retracement now again, but my bias for this one long term is still to the downside. Targets at 0.84 down there. We still do have this trend line intact, and we've had this trend line intact for quite some time now. A bit of a false breakout there, but we did come back, retest that, and now seeing some more downside. So yeah, Euro GBP, I think it's just in retracement mode, getting ready for another sell-off to the downside. We do have really key area of support and resistance here around the 0.85100 mark. As you can see, this is the support that gave us that big move to the upside, breaking through that trend line, and now we're coming back to retest that as resistance. So for Euro Pound, I do see more downside back into these lows for next week. However, we haven't tested that trend line yet, and I do think it would be nice to see a test of that trend line plus that resistance, and then let's get getting some sells. So again, from this general area here, I think sells will be good, but stops do need to be above that trend line. So I think for Euro Pound, it does consolidate a little bit. It might move to come test that trend line and then look for the dip. So it might push past this area of resistance first, test the trend line, and then look for the sell off to the downside. So I will be looking to get involved in some sells if we can come test that trend line, keep up the rejection like we are doing so far for this resistance, and then sells back into that low there, and again could push it on a little bit. But Euro Pound does take its time when it does move, so I'll probably just look to target that support around the 0.84 500 mark. So more downside for euro pound this week. Again, looking to get some nice sells in from that 0.85100 mark, but do beware, we do have that trend line that price has been respecting so many times. So price, you know, has a good chance of coming back to retest that area first. So wait for the retest of the trend line, see if we can get some nice wick rejections, and then look to set it back down into these lows here.
Okay, so up next we've got AUD USD.
And next up we've got AUD USD. So for this pair, as you can see, just more consolidation this week. I was expecting the market to finally break out this consolidation to the downside. However, as you can see, that did not happen. The market just held this support. We've had numerous tests of this support. We had quite a few this week as well, but we just failed to break through it. It held firm, and I think AU could actually break into the upside now out of this consolidation and see some higher highs. Like I said previously, I do expect to see that weakness in the US dollar coming into the next few days, few weeks, few months. So I do see that weakness coming in. If that does come in, you know, pairs like AU, Euro USD, Pound USD should be pushing to the upside. So I do expect to see some upside coming in for next week for AU. My bias is the upside for AU as well. Probably not the best USD pair to trade because of the nature of the market. It's very choppy, but if you can find some clarity in it, I do think we could be in for some nice buys to the upside for this pair, back into the resistance up here, and maybe even further as well. We do have this zone just above it here, that last kind of lower high, just below the 0.74500 mark. So looking for the market to pull back one more time, because we did see quite a nice ejection of momentum to the upside there. Don't want to buy on that, want the price to retrace, form a nice high low, and then take the buys. So we do have this trend line here, as you can see, first, second, third test. If we can come back, form a nice fourth test, nice high low, we'll look to get involved there, take it back into that resistance, and if we can push past that as well, we'll take it back into that resistance up there. So more upside this week for AU. Again, like I said, as long as we stay above that trend line there and above that support, I'm looking for buys back into that resistance and back into those highs up there, just below 0.74500.
Now let's take a look at NZD CAD.
And now we're going to move on to NZD CAD. So for this pair, was looking for more downside this week. We did see that. However, as you can see, the market is losing that momentum to the downside and actually starting to find some support higher up. So NZD CAD, I feel like that bearish momentum is starting to run out, and we could be seeing another push to the upside and seeing some bullish momentum coming to the markets again next week. So the next week, I'm expecting more upside for NZD CAD. We do have this trend line that I've noticed here in the market, which we did have that false breakthrough, and now I think the market's coming back to retest that as support. So you can see first, second, third, fourth there with the false breakout, come back for the fifth test, and we're respecting that quite nicely with a nice test of that wick there, and I think we can see some more upside for NZD CAD. The important thing to note is that we're still below this resistance here, but I do think the market is getting ready to break through this, and when we do break through this, I think NZD CAD will see a lot of momentum, probably come and test these highs up there. So yeah, NZD CAD, I'm seeing some nice buying opportunities coming into the market next week. As you can see, this is the bottom that I'm talking about. Price has been showing that nice bearish momentum last week. However, we've been failing to break through that, you know, respecting the support, and this potentially is a nice double bottom forming there. So nice push to the upside there, wanting the price to come back down, form another higher low, and then we can take it back into that resistance, or maybe even equal lows as well, back into that resistance there, and then potentially you can take it into the top of that wick there as well, or the top of that wick there if we have, you know, a lot of momentum to the upside. But NZD CAD for next week, looking for buying opportunities only. Actually, no, as long as we stay above that trend line, if we get back below it and start holding as resistance, now I'm probably changing my bias to bearish, but it's looking like we'll probably have another drive to the upside. So yeah, I'm quite confident with buys for NZD CAD for next week. Could look for an opportunity around here from a nice higher low or something like that. Stop just below this support here, because this is obviously where price is struggling to break through. Look to target that resistance there on the daily. If you can break through that, it'll be that resistance there with that wick, or even that resistance there if you can really push on. But yeah, more upside for NZD CAD, and if you can break through that, we'll probably go a lot further there for NZD CAD. So yeah, more upside as long as we stay above that trend line, looking for a higher low or a retest of this support, and then take it to the upside there.
Next up, we've got GBP NZD.
Okay, so next up we've got Pound NZD. So for this pair, was expecting a bit more of a move to the upside this week. We did see that move to the upside, but it got halfway to my target, which was this resistance here. As you can see, we spiked a couple times there before dumping to the downside again, back into that trend line. So overall, Pound NZD does look like it's running out a bit of energy to the upside, and we could be seeing a big move to the downside happen. As you can see on the weekly time frame, we're coming back into this area here, and I do think from here we'll probably see pound NZD take a big dive to the downside. So over the next coming weeks, I do see a big drop to the downside for pound NZD, and I do think that could be starting from next week. So I do have that bearish bias for pound NZD. You can see we are forming these lower highs, but probably isn't the best pair to trade in my opinion, just because we're still on top of that trend line there. It would be nice if price was to break through this trend line here on the daily, come back, retest it, and then set it back down again. But as you can see, we're still above it, but I do have that bearish bias. So first area of interest will probably be this resistance here. As you can see, the market is respecting it quite nicely, stops above that that wick up there, and we'll be looking to test this wick here, which did actually break through the trend line, but it turns out it was just a false break, big spike down, spike back up again. So we'll be looking to see if we can get the market back down to this area there. But I think the more attractive and the more higher probability trade will be if the market can retrace all the way back up to this resistance and then look to sell it back down again, and you know the risk to reward is much better there as well. We'll look to see if you can take it back into that trend line and then break that trend line back down to those lows there. So yeah, the risk to reward is a lot better and just a overall high probability trade. But again, like I said earlier in the video, the market doesn't have to retrace that much for us. It could just be a short retracement like that and then a dump to the downside, and we do miss out on that opportunity. So do have to stay on the toes a little bit, but like I said, it's probably not the best opportunity because we do have that trend line right there. So you know, there are other pairs in the video that are much better to trade. Some pairs that I already talked about, like USD CAD, Euro USD, USD JPY as well, a lot better setups than pound NZD. But if you are looking to trade it, that's probably what I'll look for. Or if you do see that retracement back into this level here, would be great as well, and then set it back down into those lows down there.
Next, we're going to move on to CAD JPY.
Okay, so next up we've got CAD JPY. So for this pair, I was expecting to see a nice move to the downside this week, and if I go into the lower time frames, you can see we did see a big push to the upside there, and I think that was just a false breakout this week. Really, price action was just consolidating there. Was expecting to see a dump to the downside, however it just built up, broke to the upside, and as you can see where price is trading right now, it's just below that support there. So essentially all of this price action here kind of never happened. It kind of just, you know, deleted itself, pushed up, came down. So I think that's just a big liquidity grab just above that previous high there to give it the extra push it needs to have that dump to the downside. So my buy still stands from last week coming into this week. I'm seeing more downside. As for targets, this support here is where I'm expecting price to come to. If you can break through that, then this support there, then if you can break through that nice psychological level here, prior resistance around the 86 mark, nice psychological level. So I'm seeing a lot more downside for CAD JPY and of places to get involved in. Do have this resistance here, resistance there as well, will be acting as resistance a third time if we do pull back into this area. So we'll be looking to get some nice shorts from there. Again, targets at that support, then that support there. So price can do something like this, retest that, something like that, show some nice quick rejections, can look to get involved, and then we take it down into that support, then that support there. But like I said previously with some other pairs like USD JPY and Euro USD, we don't always have to retrace that far, so we do have to look at a second area of interest, which will probably be this area here. So if we do open up quite bearish and have that dump to the downside and price pushes on, then we'll look for the retracement back into this area, and then we'll look to set it back down again. So kind of two areas looking to focus on. Again, using price action to judge which area we look to trade from. If we do storm to the downside and then wait for that pullback, it'll probably be this area here, price support, now term resistance. Or if we do find some support early on in the week and we do drive to the upside again, this will be the area that we look to sell from. Take it back down into this support around the 87 mark essentially, and back down to here around the 86,700. So more downside for CAD JPY next week, and looking to sell at either this level or that level there, back down to that support.
Up next is GBP USD.
And now we're going to move on to pound USD. So for this pair, we did see that move to the downside, which was expected. A nice move back into this support here in the market. So a really nice area of support there, big push up. And also it lined up with a nice psychological level there, 1.38. So we tapped into that, and we're looking quite bullish from this area here for pound USD. If I do go onto the lower time frames, you can see we've had a nice reaction to the upside. I do believe that was news. Then we came back down, and again, price had another reaction out there. So it does look like price is trying to turn bullish, or just trying to hold that support and see a move to the upside. And I do think that could be happening for next week. This is the resistance where I'm expecting price to come to, and if you can break through that, then move all the way up back up to these highs. I'm not too sure if price will do that in 1 week though. A big push up here, it could do that. It could do that because, as you can see, we've had a lot of momentum, a lot of volatility in the markets recently, so that could well happen. But yeah, target to the upside and biases to the upside for next week for pound USD. Want price to come back down first, form a nice higher low, or even retest the support. That would be great as well. Then looking for another drive back into this resistance here at 1.39, and if we can break through that and then push up to here just below 1.4, around 1.39800, this resistance up here. So we'll be looking for an opportunity like so, and again, it does line up nicely with Euro USD as well. Looking for that buy opportunity after price can pull back, form a higher low or an equal low, then look to drive it back up again to 1.39, and if you can break through 1.39 all the way up to 1.39800, just below the 1.4 mark. So more upside for pound USD. If we do go break through this support, then we could actually drive a lot further back down to this area here, but like I said previously, I do see a lot of weakness coming in for the USD, so I'm expecting a lot of these pairs to be heading to the upside. So pound USD, would be great to see if we can get some retracement back to the downside, come retest this area, form a nice higher low or an equal low at that support, and trade it back up again into that area, and then back up to 1.39800.
And next we're going to see what's happening with GBP CAD.
And now let's take a look at pound CAD. So for this pair, I was expecting to see a bit of a move to the downside this week. As you can see, price was consolidating towards the end of last week, and it carried on pretty much into this week as well. Then we had that breakout to the downside, so we did see that move to the downside back into this support here. It did break through, actually, as you can see, did break through that area of support, but I do think we can see another push to the upside again for pound CAD, because I do think we can see a lot more upside for this pair. This potentially could be a higher low, and we could see another drive to the upside. So again, if I take this across, you can see the market held the support, broke through, but I think that was just a false break, and we could come back to retest that, form a higher low, and then push on. So something like this, nice little head and shoulders pattern, and see a drive back into this consolidation, and maybe back into that resistance up there as well. So biases to the upside for pound CAD coming into this week. Looking for more upside for this pair. A nice buying opportunity would be buying from that support, and stops do have to be below this low here, because we could potentially drive back into here, form an equal low, and then push on. So stops do have to be below that area, but then a push back into that consolidation, and then potentially those highs up there. So I'm seeing more upside for pound CAD. If we do actually break below back below this area again and start holding that as resistance, then we might take a bigger move all the way back down to these lows here. In that case, you can look to flip your bias and look for some shorts, at that same area, and then look to target these lows down there. But for now, it's looking bullish here, and I'm expecting more upside for pound CAD. So looking for price to retrace back into this area here, stops below there, looking for another drive back into that consolidation area, and then that resistance there. So looking for that head and shoulders pattern to come through, but do recognize that we could break through again, retap this support before having that drive to the upside. But nonetheless, more upside for pound CAD back into that 1.75 level.
Okay, up next we've got GBP JPY.
Okay, so up next we've got pound JPY. So for this pair, again, was favoring a move to the downside this week because we were trading underneath this resistance, and also we had this trend line here as well in the market. As you can see, a bit of a false break from it, but essentially we held that trend line, held that resistance, and a big move to the downside is commencing. So I do still see more downside for pound JPY, a push into these lows here, and maybe even these lows here in the next coming weeks. So yeah, a lot more downside for pound JPY, and I think we're going to see that bearish trend that we've been seeing here really start to continue again this upcoming week. So looking for selling opportunities and biases to the downside. Area of interest is this area here, 152,600. Looking to see if we can get some retracement back to the upside, come retest that level, then see another sell off to the downside. And as for targets, it will be this support here again. As you can see, we had shown some really nice respect to this support, double bottom there, bit of consolidation there before another breakout to the upside. So again, it does hold its weight there, but if we can break through that, we'll be looking at this 151, well actually 15800 area, just below 151 as a second target. So more downside for pound JPY, looking for a retest of that, stop just above that area, and if you can hold that, that'll be great, and look to sell it off. Again, targets will be this support here. Then if you can break through that, this support there, and again probably even a lot further. But like I said, we might not even retrace all the way up to that level, so do have to keep that in mind. We could well, you know, because we're not too far from this support really, we could open up, you know, slowly work our way down to that support, break through that, then come up, retest it, and then we can sell it back into those levels there. And then maybe if we're targeting, we can look to target all the way down there as well. So yeah, more downside for power JPY, but be on your toes a little bit, because the price has actually had made a little bit of a way to the downside, you know, on Friday there. So we might come back, retest this level here, and then push up, retest, and then sell off, which again will be a really nice opportunity there to sell off. But again, it's not really too much how price moves, it's just where we're looking to sell and our price action we're looking to get involved in, and that is a really key level to sell from. So if you do come back up to that level, I will be looking for sells if we do get some nice rejection from that level, or if we do go and break through this level, come back and retest it, again we'll look to sell back down into that support there. So these are kind of the two main opportunities I will be looking for this week. Sells back into 15800, either from a break and retest of this area here, 151600, or just a retest of 152600 up there.
And up next, we're going to take a look at gold.
Okay, so now we're going to move on to gold. So for this pair, massive move to the downside this week, massive crash, but also a massive pullback as well. As you can see, we've moved from 1680 all the way back up to 1780 there. So a big move back to the upside there. And price is looking a little bit bullish despite this massive crash to the downside. I can see a little bit more upside this week for gold. Overall, again, long-term bias, not too sure, because we have respected this support here, and that could just be another retest for price to start working its way back to the upside, which I wouldn't be surprised if that was to happen. But for next week, I think we can see the price start to fluctuate between these two areas of support here and resistance here as well. So I'm looking at more upside if we can come back and retest the support, but at the same time I'm looking at downside as well if we just make our way up to that resistance, because as you can see, we've had numerous wicks, numerous bounce, numerous tests of this level here, and eventually we just had one massive candle breaking through and no retest as resistance. And normally when you do see this happen, you normally do see price come back, retest that area, and do see quite a big reaction from that area as well, because we haven't retested it. Nice fresh area of resistance where price has been building up and then come back to, you know, mitigate some of those orders. So I do see another test of this area, but I'm not too sure if gold is gonna just make its way to the upside, come back and test that area, or pull back, retest that support, which is, you know, this support going through the market there, that support as well there. If I just shift that across to the left, you can see really nice support there as well. So it does hold 1760 stroke 1770, nice area support. I'm not too sure if price is going to retrace, test the area and then push on, or just push on, test the area and then see a move to the downside. Either way, we're looking to either buy from that area of support, or either sell from that area of resistance. So those are the trades we'll be looking at to take this week for gold. Either a sell back down into that same area here, or a buy back into that same area of resistance. Stop just below the area, of course, back into that resistance there. So again, staying on your toes, just see what price action does, because we are looking very bullish now. Price might not want to retrace, might want to just slowly make its way up to that resistance, which is perfectly fine, because, you know, you can see a lot of support there will now be turning, you know, resistance. So if we do see some nice wicks forming, something like that, we can look to get involved in some shorts, and then obvious targets will be back at 1770 stroke 1760, back down in that area. And on the flip side, if you do pull back into this area, hold it as support, can look for buyers to take it back into that resistance, and then even sell it back down again if the market does do that before the weekly candle closes. But yeah, either one of those two areas, great place to look to sell, buy from, see what the market wants to do, and then just act accordingly.
And last but not least, we've got Bitcoin.
And lastly, we've got Bitcoin. So as you can see, we're still pumping to the upside, and we're actually broken through my first area of resistance, which is this area here. As you can see, we did use that support to push on, and now we're pushing into this area of resistance here. So this is kind of like the last mark for me, around the 48 stroke 50,000 mark of resistance. If we can break through that, now I think Bitcoin is well and truly on its way to the upside. Come and test these areas here, these areas there, and probably push on a lot further. So Bitcoin's now coming to that resistance, and if we do hold that resistance there, I'm going to be expecting to see some downside for Bitcoin. We do have this area of resistance here, which can kind of has not been retested. So if we do hold into that area, that's where I'm seeing Bitcoin to go, and if you break through that, then we'll probably push it onto this area here as well, which again is probably a nice area to buy from, or if we do hold into that, nice area to buy from there as well. So if I do show that trade there, stops above there, targets there, and of course if we break through that, I can target that as well. But on the flip side, if we do bounce from that, that'll be a nice area to buy from, target that resistance and so on, or that area, target that resistance and so on as well. But Bitcoin coming into that last barrier of resistance, we'll see what happens from that. We've kind of just tapped into it, but again, there's not much there on the daily. 4 hours, you can see a bit of a reaction, but again, the market is still very bullish here. So see what happens at that level. If we do reject that, then I do see some nice downside back down to the 40,000 mark, come and retest that, then either some upside, or if you do break through that, back down to the 30,000 mark, and then some upside from there on for Bitcoin. Okay guys, so that is the end of the video. I hope you all enjoyed that and found that useful. Like always, if you have any questions, agree or disagree with my analysis, let me know, drop a comment down below and I'll make sure I get back to you. Drop a like if you enjoyed it, and also subscribe if you want to see more of the similar content. But thanks guys for watching the video, really do appreciate it, and I'll catch you guys in the next one.